Sprockets, when we dance.
Yeah. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Casey here with Dave. We are the football dudes. Dave, are you ready, bro?
Oh, yeah, you got that right, my friend.
All right. That's the signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the trend zone. It's Wednesday, November 29th, our last show before the calendar turns to December,
Whew.
Dave.
Wow, man,
It's going. We're
this
coming to you
year's
from
going crazy fast.
I know, right? 2024, right around the corner. We are coming to you from Los Angeles, California, and it is a beautiful 60 degrees.
Okay, I got 61 over here. It's a little chilly, but not too bad.
All right. In today's episode, we'll talk about some eye popping Turkey Day viewership numbers. Hope I just didn't pop the mic there. We'll talk what some call, and by some I mean myself, are calling Blech Friday.
Okay,
The coaching carousel is
well
getting
said.
another vacancy or a seat. I don't know which way it goes. If the carousel loses people or gets people,
They
either
fly
way.
off.
Yeah, I don't know what's going. And we're talking playoffs. Playoffs, yeah, a team can clinch this weekend.
Whew.
All of that and all of the awesome games from the upcoming week. I'm checking my pockets; they're empty, Dave. But tell me, you're holding nugs for the
I got a
people.
little something for the people, Casey. For the second consecutive year, the NFL set Thanksgiving Day viewership record. It was the average viewership, that is TV and digital, across all three games, was Packers, Lions, Commanders, Cowboys, and 49ers, Seahawks. It was 34.1 million for the highest Thanksgiving Day average on record, topping last year's record of 33.6 million. So, on average, Casey, it was, of course, your Cowboys crushing the Commandos with an average 41.8 viewers. So that led all of them. That was the most watched NFL regular season game on record, behind only last year's Thanksgiving Day between the Cowboys and the Giants. Common denominator?
Cowboys equal eyeballs, baby. I'm going to go
How
out
about
on
the
the limb.
Cowboys?
I'm going to go out on a limb there and say next year it's going to be even more. We're going to get over 42 million.
That's right.
Oh man, well, uh the Cowboys are one of the hottest teams in the NFL, but
So hot.
Dave, there are so hot and there are not hot.
Yeah, 12 teams riding a multiple game losing streak into the last week of November. On the other side of the equation, 11 teams are on a multiple game win streak. So now's the time, man. It's
There's
kind of getting
good,
towards the end.
yeah, good and bad football being played out there everywhere. But Dave, even if you are one of those teams on a losing streak, do not give up.
Yeah, do not give up. 17 of the past 19 seasons, a team with a losing record through 11 games has made the postseason, including each of the past 5 years. Last year, it was the Jacksonville Jaguars that were 4-7 at this point. They rebounded, of course, to win the division, win a playoff game, and finish a touchdown shy of the AFC Championship. So do not panic. It is possible, if your team happens to be 4-7, like some guy I know who does a podcast, it still could happen. Highly unlikely, though. But now that there are 17 games, this goes back 19 years, where 17 of the last 19. Now they've expanded the playoffs for the last handful of years. That opens that up a little bit more, even for a
Yep.
team to kind of claw their way back in. And again, we talked about the streaks. You got to put together a streak at the right time, play your best football towards the end of the season, and bam, get into the tourney.
We're going streaking, baby. Oh yeah, plenty of time. You play your cards right, you're getting in. All right, Dave, this is kind of a light week for injuries. Thank goodness, but there's still some players that are going to miss out on week 13.
Yeah, let's start it with Dorian Thompson Robinson of the Browns. He's got a concussion. He will likely miss this week. Amari Cooper on that same squad, rib injury. He's likely going to miss this week. Moving it on over to the Saints, couple of receivers down for the Saints. It was Olave who got concussed. He will likely miss the week. And Rashid Shaheed, he has a thigh injury. He'll probably miss a couple of games.
Yeah, dang. And that sucks for DTR coming back to Los Angeles to play these Rams and not getting to be in the game.
Boy,
Total
that would have been
bummer.
cool. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
certainly is.
Well, there are a few people out there more bummed than DTR. The Reich is over in Carolina, Dave. Not even a full season.
Yeah, and wow, Frank Reich fired, obviously interim coach now. head coach Chris Tabor then also immediately fired uh, quarterbacks coach Josh McCown and running backs coach Deuce Staley. Panthers interim head coach Chris Tabor said that he was in charge of the firing. Getting rid of those two guys was his call. So maybe there was a little bit of dissension in the ranks there. Some guys were Frank Reich guys, other guys more in line with Tabor. So, anyways, doesn't seem like there's a lot of stability. Might I suggest in the Tepper regime over there in Carolina? Seemed like the greatest thing in the world when he replaced Jerry Richardson. And at this point in time, he is very, very quick trigger on moving past quarterbacks, moving past players. And you got to assume that he had a lot to do with them jumping up in the draft there. And now they have the top draft in the draft. Oh, they don't have that top pick.
Yeah, the speculation was that Reich was not on board with the Bryce Young pick and wanted to go with C.J. Stroud, and maybe he revoiced that opinion, and somebody didn't like the sound of it.
Yeah, gave him the axe.
He'll wind up somewhere real quick. Like I'm pretty confident
if he wants
in that.
to. Yeah, if he wants to. Otherwise, he can collect the paychecks. I'm sure there was a pretty nice payday that is partially guaranteed to some degree or another.
Oh, yeah. So maybe he's already vacationing. Not a bad way to go. I need to be fired as a coach.
Me too.
I need that golden parachute. Oh, sorry. $75 million, Jimbo Fisher. What?
Take the money and run.
That's right. Dave, it's only week 13, but there is a sole team out there that can clinch the playoffs already.
Yeah, your beloved. No, that's not your beloved. It is Nick's beloved Philadelphia Eagles. And they can get in, KC, with a win and a loss from the Rams or tie. And then also another way would be Philly winning and Detroit losing and Green Bay losing or tying. So those are the two ways with Philly winning. Philly can also tie and get in somehow, but then there has to be a slew of other things happening. So let's stick with the two most likely ways that they get in. Philadelphia wins and some other combination of teams loses, and boom, they're in.
Yeah, I think even if it doesn't happen this week, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think they're really getting all too antsy over there in Philadelphia about missing the playoffs right about now.
Oh, man, yeah. They're going to be there. But, Dave, back to Black Friday. We were stoked that we got football, and then we found out it was going to be the Jets, so we were less stoked. But I don't think I could be less stoked than I am with Amazon streaming. Another L for the NFL.
Yeah. Extremely disappointing is a good way of describing it. We talk about it over and over again. I text a rant to the football dudes, people about the unbelievably horrible quality. When I turn my TV on, I have to start the game late because I work. I come in late, 45 minutes, 50 minutes late, and I have to do everything in the world to not see the score because it starts live. It just starts right up and it's on, and I have to rewind, turn the sound down, and then sometime or another, it bounces ahead live for some reason. I have no idea why. And it's unbelievable.
That's exactly what happened to me on Friday, but it actually worked out for me because I couldn't pound enough turkey to fall deep enough into tryptophan coma to sleep through that awful game. Absolutely garbage. Made me think about canceling my Prime membership. It was so bad.
Yeah, when it was 3-3 for so long, I thought they were talking about football, and now they've given us football. It was a scintillating 3-3 match for like most of the game. Turned out to be a very, very slow-paced football game.
Yeah, I would have much rather preferred that USA versus England World Cup game from last year opposed to that Jets Dolphins. Ugh. All right, Dave, enough with that garbage. Let's get into the Week 13 action.
All right, Week 13. Did you say it's Week 13?
Yeah, it's Week 13.
Dude, it's slipping away, man. Slipping away.
I know. We're almost in December. It's Week 13. On the fantasy show, we talked about no buys in Week 14. There are actually two more teams on bye next week.
I saw
just
that.
Removed them from thought because I was looking ahead at my schedule. But this week, we have a lot of teams on bye. The Ravens, the Bills, the Bears, the Raiders, the Vikings, and the Giants. And Dave, 5 games in Week 13 feature rematches of Super Bowls or NFL/AFL championship games. including the clubs that met in the first AFL NFL World Championship game, or as we like to call it, the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Sounds
Also in
good.
LA at the Coliseum.
That's right. I believe tickets were $5.
I'll take two. Oh, baby. Well, let's get this thing crack-a-lacking on Thursday night football. It is the Seattle Seahawks at my Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys are favored by 7.5.
Ooh, okay. It's a big one, Casey, for obviously for both teams, but and certainly for these Seahawks. They've dropped two straight and in their division 2 weeks ago to the Rams, and then last week on Thanksgiving evening, losing to the 49ers 31-13. And at 6-5, they're now two back from the Niners in the AFC West and the NFC West rather. Geno Smith ineffective, throwing for just 180 yards, 0 touchdowns, and a pick. Kenneth Walker unable to go in that game due to injury, and he's still banged up at this point in time, so it's unsure what's going to happen there moving forward. But Zach Charbonnet was held to just 58 yards. Between Lockett, Metcalf, and Njigba, they were a combined 8 catches for 108 yards and no
Ugh.
touchdowns. Awful statistics. The offense has got to get back on track against another tough defense. That was a tough defense, but so are the Cowboys. So they have got to find a way to beat these better defenses and get something going off offensively. Overall, Seattle's offense has struggled to run this season, ranking just 26th and under 100 yards a game. On defense, Seattle's going to have their hands full. Also, on the other side of the equation, taking care of a really good Cowboys offense.
Yeah, dude, you know what? I'm going to go ahead, since Kenneth Walker's on my fantasy team, I'm going to go ahead and take that L for fantasy to trump reality. I'm going to take one for the team and just sit them down, get them right for next week.
Good thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. But unless something crazy happens, these two teams are jockeying for the top wild card seeding.
Yeah.
And they want that 5th seed because they will get to play the NFC South champ, while the loser will most likely have to play at San Francisco or Detroit. Not as groovy there. A win here would also give the Cowboys a 3-game lead over the Seahawks and whoever slides into that 7 seed. The boys are cooking it up at home. Cowboys first team in NFL history to win each of its first 5 home games by 20 or more points. Not only that, the Cowboys are also looking for their 14th consecutive home win. A big reason why is the play of Dak Prescott. Dak announced this week that his girlfriend is pregnant and he will soon be a father. So I wonder if that means he's telling the Giants that he's going to run out real quick for a pack of smokes and some Pop-Tarts because he can't be their dad anymore. Either way, there isn't anyone playing better than Dak right now. 331 yards of 4 TDs, 0 interceptions against the Durs, 142.1 passer rating. His 4th game this year with 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is the most in the NFL. And he is 0.2% behind Brock Purdy for the highest completion percentage in the NFL at 70%. And he's spreading those TDs around, baby. 4 different receivers with a touchdown versus the Durs on Thursday, including Brandon Cooks. And remember when this dude was struggling to get acclimated to the Texas Coast offense? His last 3 games, 16 catches,
Acclimated.
287 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Run game getting better too. Tony Pollard and the O-line, specifically Terrence Steele, they're healthy, and it's showing. The run game getting healthy, as well as red zone efficiency. 16th overall, but 2nd in their last 3 games at 79%.
Ooh.
Offense ain't the only one scoring touchdowns either, Dave. Jerron Bland, first player in NFL history with 5 interception return touchdowns in a season. He's also
Unbelievable.
tied the single season league record for overall defensive touchdowns. That puts Bland just 2 TDs behind the Steelers and the Jets in receiving touchdowns, their entire teams, okay? And when Micah Parsons isn't being held or clothesline, he's pretty good at getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. 11.5 sacks, his 3rd straight season doing that. The team with 37, 17 takeaways, and giving up less than 17 points a game. But Dave, Dak says, I ain't done shit yet. So far, these boys 0-2 against bird teams. And as
Uh-oh.
long as they're not looking past these birds to next week's birds, they should have this game flying high again. That's an Aussie reference. Get hip, nerds.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
Fly
All
high.
right, that was my monologue, Dave. It's time for yours. Up next, your Los Angeles Chargers at the New England Patriots. Chargers 5.5-point favorites on the road. React.
Yeah, Chargers have dropped 3 in a row, and at 4 and 7 likely need to run the table to get to the playoffs. Last week's loss to the Ravens was yet another close one. They ended up losing by 10, but Herbert and the Chargers offense down by 3 at midfield with just a couple of minutes left in the game, only to turn the ball over on downs and ultimately give up that extra touchdown to the Ravens there, trying to stop them. Chargers found yet another way to lose. This time, turning the ball over 4 times to the Ravens. Okay, it's not like a new invention of how to lose. Losing 4 turnovers and getting none back is the ultimate easy way to find a loss, right? But the Chargers hadn't been doing that all year. In fact, they had very few turnovers and went into the game +7 in the turnover ratio. So that's why it's such a new event that suddenly all these turnovers happened in this one game. Still remaining on the schedule after New England, Denver at Las Vegas, Buffalo at Denver, and then Kansas City. So it's a
Oof.
pretty tough gauntlet if the Chargers are going to quote run the table and somehow make it into the playoffs like we were talking about the 4 and 7 teams from before. The turnovers were given up by the team's best playmakers in this last
Yeah.
game. It was Herbert with 2 picks, Eckler and Keenan Allen coughing the ball up. So, I mean, those are the dudes you want with the ball in their hand.
Mhm.
Credit to the Ravens defense. Herbert, again, great as he's been this whole season. It seems like a throwaway, unfortunately. And Keenan Allen continues to dominate. 14 receptions and 106 yards last week for Keenan. He just continues to be open no matter how many people seem to cover him. The Pats on the other side, they have been disappointing all season too, entering this game with a record of 2 and 9, good for the 3rd pick in draft if it started today. And they've been a mess at quarterback, as we know, all season long. At this point, it would be preferable, I think, for the team to lose out and land a high enough pick to select one of those top
Mhm.
quarterback prospects in next year's draft. And here's the prospects of that happening up next on the schedule. It's at Pittsburgh, Kansas City, at Denver, at Buffalo, and the Jets. They'll likely be underdogs, perhaps in all of those games. So
Ugh.
we'll see if they find a way to end up as a 2-win team, but even maybe grabbing a win in there, still you're going to be one of the top picks in the draft. There they are right now with the 3rd selection.
That's a bummer, dude. And it's also a bummer that the Chargers can't find any wins in those dark blue unis. They're so dope. I
Oh,
love them, but
they are
they
nice.
haven't been lucky yet.
Not yet. All right, Casey, up next. It's the Detroit Lions at the New Orleans Saints, and the Lions on the road are favored by 3.5.
Lions coming off a brutal Thanksgiving Day loss to the Packers. Not only did they drop from the 2 to the 3 seed, they also gave the hated Packers life towards making it into the playoffs, dude.
Yep,
So,
big time.
yeah, bad news for the Lions. I think this is probably a get right game for them, but they need to start stacking some wins there because in the games they've lost, they've not looked great, and
Yeah,
you want more consistency. Getting
yeah.
beat when you play well is one thing, but just clunking out, I'm seeing some stuff that is not.
You don't want to do one of those in the playoffs.
No,
Season's over.
no. So they got to start stacking some wins. That 2 seed is still there, but getting this win on the road would go a long way towards getting them back up there.
Yeah, these Saints, Casey, fresh off the bye, have lost their 2nd straight game, losing to the Vikings, and then losing a game for first place last week to the Falcons. At 5 and 6, the Saints currently um, lose the tiebreaker to the Falcons and reside in 2nd place outside the playoffs. Still plenty of time for them to scrap it together, though. Last game, Carr passed for 304. Olave had 7 for 114. That was a pretty nice game. And Taysom Hill had 81 scrimmage yards. Kamara had 119 scrimmage yards. Those sound like numbers that should translate to a W. They didn't. And the Saints defense, which has been solid all season, but does struggle to slow the running attack down, really struggled last week, giving up almost 200 yards to the Falcons and a TD to the 3-pack of running backs that the Falcons were running out there. It's a good mix of dudes, though. Anyways, on the season, the Saints are 9th in total yards, 7th versus a pass, 8th in points given up at just over 20 a game. But again, stopping the run has been their issue, where they're 23rd. So expect the Lions to try and play physical ball with them in this game, establish the ground game with their tailbacks, and follow that Falcons game plan that worked pretty clearly.
Yeah, it's a big game for both these teams, especially the Saints.
It sure is. All right, up next, Casey, it's the Atlanta Falcons, and they're headed to New York to play the Jets. Falcons on the road are favored by 2.5. What do you got?
I don't know what to think about this game as the Jets are terrible, but I always seem to get my Falcons pick wrong, and I feel like the Falcons should win this game.
Oh, no.
Get in for the
What a
Jets.
quandary.
Uh, and last week on the show, we said that the Falcons needed to get Bijan going in the pass game, and
Yep.
they did that last week. 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. That helped him get to 124 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns on the day.
Beautiful.
Desmond Ridder has been okay if he doesn't turn the ball over, but he's done that a lot. But if he holds on to it, they should win this game. The Jets, as I mentioned, almost made me cancel my Prime membership. That game was disgusting. If
Yes.
there's any good news out of Jetville, it said Aaron Rodgers is officially back at Jets practice, but I don't see a world where they bring him back this season. But then again, I'm not high on ayahuasca.
That's right. Someone else probably is, though.
Yeah,
Of
we
all the games that happened this season, Casey, this is one of them. So
yeah.
that's about all I got for this one.
All right, Dave. Up next, we have the Arizona Cardinals at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and those Steelers are 6-point favorites.
Yeah, and at 2-10, the Cards got clobbered by the Rams last week, 37-14, to lose their second in a row. Kyler Murray passed for 256 and 2 touchdowns, which is pretty good. But with the second worst record in the league, the Cards may be better off racking up losses, setting themselves up for future success, whether that includes Kyler or not. Is yet to be determined. Obviously, first-year head coach Jonathan Gammon will not be tanking. I mean, that's not, and that's not what a rookie head coach does, right? And you can bet that Kyler Murray knows that he has to show the organization and the league that he's a viable NFL quarterback. He can stay healthy and consistently play well. The 7-4 Steelers, they're coming off a 16-10 win over the Bengals, and since firing Matt Canada and the promotion of Mike Sullivan to OC, that's really seemed to spark the offense, which had struggled all year. In fact, Kenny Pickett had a really nice day, completing 24 of 33 for almost 73% for a season high
I thought you were going to say
278.
73 yards. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, he is lighting it up.
73% though, man,
Yeah.
consistent and not turning it over, right? And then Freiermuth, back off the injury, he had a career high in catches with 9 and receiving yards with 120. Najee Harris led the team. He'd been in and out of the good graces of this team. He couldn't put anything together. He had 99 rush yards and a touchdown, and Jalen Warren 62 scrimmage yards. So on both sides of the ball, I've mentioned it before, the Steelers are statistically not pretty, right? But if the offense can keep improving like it has shown lately, and the defense continues to thrive in specific areas, mainly 15 points given up, which is the most important of all defensive stats ultimately, right? And then under 19 points a game. How about 32 sacks on the season, 22 takeaways, and a plus 11 turnover differential? Wow. The Steelers can beat anyone if they can keep playing like that. And this week, it's the Cardinals.
Steelers going to be the worst 13-4 team in the history of the league.
I know.
They
keep coming up winning.
Crazy.
You got to give them credit. They find a way to win. Other teams find a way to lose.
Yeah.
All right, up next, Casey, the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. The Colts on the road favored by 2.
Yeah, these Colts have won 3 in a row after losing 3 in a row and are currently the 7 seed. They will be without Jonathan Taylor, who's undergoing thumb surgery, but the team is not putting him on IR, which means they think he's going to be back in less than 4 weeks. Luckily, they do have Zach Moss, who's been pretty good when they've been without JT. The Colts, they sacked Baker 6 times last week.
Wow.
And are tied for most strip sacks in the NFL this season with 5. That could be a problem for the rookie QB, Will Levis. He's been okay, but as a team, these Titans have way more questions than answers. If anything, they're going to play spoiler on their way to Cancun. Season's done for the Titans. Let's see how they ride out this string of games.
No question. Titans are going to have some roster changes. Who knows? I don't think so, but maybe a coaching change as well, depending on how things pan out there.
Yeah, it's really weird that they held on to the high-priced vets at that point in the season when they could have gotten some picks and done a reset. So,
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the offseason. All right, Dave. Up next, rematch of the Super Bowl from the perfect season. The Miami Dolphins at the Washington Commanders, and those Fins are 9.5-point favorites.
Okay, the Dolphins have won their second in a row, destroying the Jets on Black Friday, 34-13, and bringing their
Dave,
record. Yeah.
it's Blech
Oh
Friday.
yeah, that's right. Bringing their record to 8-3, a 2.5 game lead over the Bills in the AFC East. The Dolphins lead the NFL in total offense at 430.5 yards per game, and are second in scoring at just under 31 a game. Last week, Tua 21 of 30. That's 70% for 243. Raheem Mostert led the team with 94 yards rushing and a 2 TDs, and Jeff Wilson had a season high 73 scrimmage yards. Waddle had 8 catches for 114 yards. It's a pretty good fantasy day for my team with Waddle and also Mostert. Anyways, it's the Commanders on the other side. They've lost 3 straight, heading in the opposite direction. They've dropped to 4-8 last week, getting blown out by the Cowboys 45-10. They are currently not in the playoff mix, but are just 2 games out of a wild card spot if everything were to fall in place. There's a lot of teams that would have to kind of crumble a little bit in front of them. But with some very tough opponents still on the schedule, including the 49ers, Cowboys, it does seem highly unlikely that they could put together enough wins to make it. On the bright side, Sam Howell passed for 300 yards and had his 3rd rush TD of the season last week. So it looks like he's shown that he could and very well likely will be the quarterback for the Commandos moving forward.
Yeah, no confirmation, but we heard Rowboat Ron was rowing his boat on the Potomac there, maybe right out of town. We'll see how the season finishes, but
We shall.
it might be a little tricky. All right, Dave, up next, we have the Denver Broncos at the Houston Texans, and the Texans are 3-point favorites at home.
Yeah, and since starting the streets this season 1-5, the Broncos are on a 5-game win streak that is the best, if not tied for
Yeah.
the best in the league. Right? They improved their record to 6-5. They are now second in the AFC West, as they were cellar dwellers for most of the first 6 weeks of the season. They're actually in a 3-way tie for the 7th and final wild card spot right now, but they lose the tiebreaker as they're currently the 9th seed. But that's still plenty to come on that, right? With all the games left, they have been playing a lot better. Obviously, beating some good teams as part of their revival, like the Packers, Chiefs, Bills, and Vikings, and most recently an impressive 29-12 domination of the Browns. So some pretty good football teams on there as part of their comeback there. In last week's game versus a very good Browns defense, Russell Wilson got 178 yards between rushing and passing, and 2 touchdowns, ran one in himself, right? And he had no picks. It was his his 5th straight game with no interceptions. So that's a big part of this whole turnaround is turnovers and getting turnovers. And I'll get to that when I get to the defense. Javonte Williams led the team with 71 scrimmage yards, and Samaje Perine really had an impact too, 55 yards and a TD for him. Defensively, the Broncos, though, which was historically bad early in the season, has played much better during this 5-game win streak or 6-game win streak, right? Is it 5? 6. Anyways, creating turnovers has been a huge element for the Broncos here. They now lead the league with 22 takeaways, and they're +8 in the turnover differential. So when you're getting turnovers and you're not turning it over, that gives you, an opportunity to put together a 5-game win streak like the Broncos have got going.
Yeah, they're no longer the 32nd ranked
No.
defense out there. I'm not going to tell you who is, but let me talk about these Texans. Last week, this time, unbelievably, these Texans were heading into a game versus the Jags for first place in the AFC South.
Yep.
This week, they're out of the playoffs, but they have another huge game with major playoff implications, as you just stated. Unfortunately, this game is against one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. These Texans have been in 7 straight one-score games, going 4-3. And in my opinion, C.J. Stroud, he's out of the league MVP race, but he still has exceeded all expectations. Will be your offensive rookie of the year. His 5th game this year with 300 pass yards and 2 touchdowns, tied most ever by a rookie. Also is the first rookie in NFL history with 300 or more pass yards in 4 straight games. He's got at least 2 touchdowns in each of his 6 home games. Second in the NFL with over 3,200 pass yards. That's the second most ever, 3,266 by a player in their first 11 career games. Tank Dell and Nico Collins, rising stars.
Yep.
Dell is tied for the league with rookies with 7 TDs. He's second with over 700 receiving yards. Collins last week, 7 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown. He's looking for his 4th in a row with at least 50 receiving yards. Defensively, they added Desmond King and Denzel Perryman to the active roster, so they're getting a little bit healthier there. It's all right there for the Texans to take. They're currently sitting at the 8, but counting this game, Dave, all 6 of their games are versus AFC opponents, including Week 18 at the Colts, which could be a de facto playoff game. So lots to still be played for, lots still TBD, man. It's going to be wild.
Whew, and it's a fun team to watch. It's a fun team to root for, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Except when they do the red helmet. I'm not down with it. It's too much red.
Too much red. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. All right, Casey, moving on to the late slot. It is the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are at home, and they are favored by 6 in this one.
I feel like David Tepper should temper his temper for temper tantrums.
He certainly does tamper with the team.
He fired Matt Rule last year, fired Frank Reich this year, traded a ton of picks and DJ Moore for Bryce Young, apparently without the consent of Frank Reich, or a plan to develop him. Special teams coordinator, you mentioned Chris Tabor is named interim coach. Interim coach didn't work out so well for Steve Wilkes last year. Impatient billionaires are just the worst. Am I right?
Yeah, I hate that.
Flip it over to the Bucs. It's probably the South or nothing if they want to make it to the playoffs. Good news is 4 of their last 6 games are all versus NFC South opponents. Got to start stacking some wins, and that starts on Sunday against a bad Panthers team.
No question about it. This should be a win for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker's been playing pretty good football. He's got to put it together this week and make sure they take care of business.
All right, Dave. Up next, we have the Cleveland Browns. Party over here, y'all, at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams 4.5-point favorites at home.
The Browns had a 3-game winning streak snapped last week, losing to the Broncos 29-12. They are 2 games behind the Ravens in the division now, but still holding a wild card spot. Rookie DTR Dorian Thompson-Robinson started last week's game, but got concussed. He was replaced by PJ Walker. DTR will have to clear concussion protocol, or it will be Walker in this one. Or, rumor has it, will it be Joe Flacco? Flacco time?
Whoa.
Boo to Flacco. All right, we'll see about that. They're going to want to run the ball with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. Luckily, the Browns lead the NFL in total defense, right? And the pass defense is also they lead the league in that. So they're really strong there. They have 34 sacks, 16 takeaways, and unfortunately, as a team, are -7 in the turnover differential. The Rams, they're sitting at 5-6. They've won 2 straight. And after completing the season sweep over the Seahawks 2 weeks ago, they then destroyed the Cardinals last week, 37-14, to keep their playoff hopes alive. They're just 1 win behind 2 wild card teams. So right there. And so how about this? When Matthew Stafford got back into the mix, that sort of coincided with their resurgence. What a surprise, right? Stafford's pretty good. He completed 25 of 33, over almost 76% last week, had 4 touchdowns in there. And also Tyler Higbee really coming on with 2 TD catches. Kyron Williams, former Notre Damer, a career high 204 scrimmage yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And then Royce Freeman got in the act too, rushing for a season high 77 yards and a touchdown. So everybody was cashing in, except for, of course, Puka and the superstar Cup. Yeah. So the Rams will face one of the best defenses in the league in the Browns. Can they keep their offense going strong? We'll see.
Yeah, the Rams are weird. When they look good, they've looked really good. And when they haven't, it's been like, ugh. So this is a game they can't afford to drop. It's at home. I doubt Cleveland has the home field advantage at this one at the SoFi, but we'll see. It happens a lot there.
It will be interesting to see. Indeed. Certainly, they'll have to put some points on the board because eventually the Rams are going to score.
Yep.
All right, up next is the San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Niners are 2.5-point favorites on the road in Philly. Casey, Niners-Eagles clash is a rematch of the NFC title game. Eagles won 31-7. Of course, the teams that have lost the conference championship games have rebounded the following seasons, and they win 5 of the last 11 Super Bowls when they rebound there. So it does mean you're sniffing at it. You're close. You're getting there. Can they get it done this time? So we'll see that. That this rematch is kind of like a different game in the sense that,
Absolutely.
right, because of the quarterback situation for the 49ers.
Yeah, Purdy going out so early in that one, it's hard to take anything out of that game, but I don't wanna jinx him. Well, maybe I don't care if I jinx him really, but I feel like San Francisco is the best team in football, top 5 in both, total offense and total defense. It all starts with Brock Purdy. Mentioned he was knocked out of this game in the playoffs, but this year leading the league at 70.2 completion percentage,
Hmm.
uh, in 5 straight starts. He's leading the NFL at that completion percentage. He also leads the league with 112.3 passer rating. Also has a TD of 15 of his 16 career starts. So even when he's bad, he's still finding a way to score points. And he can also just hand it or throw it to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
For Seattle last week, 9 carries for 114 yards, though, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Also 5 grabs for 25 yards. He leads the NFL in rush yards, scrimmage TDs, second in scrimmage yards. And they also have Debo. Last week, 5 receptions and 70 yards, 3 carries and a rushing touchdown in the first half alone. And their defense is pretty good. Um, the Niners sacked Geno 6 times last week. So if Lane Johnson is not back, that can mean bad things for Jalen Hurts. And San Francisco wants to go in there and bully these Eagles, especially after what happened in the NFC Championship last week. Will they be able to?
Yeah, it's a good question, Casey. The Eagles have won 5 straight, beating Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo in consecutive weeks. The latest, a 37-34 barn burner of the Bills to bring their record up to a league best 10-1. The only blemish, a stunning loss to the Jets, which was a turnover fest um, for the Eagles.
It's the
The,
NFL.
it can happen, right? The Eagles are 4th team ever to win 10 plus games in their first 11 games in consecutive years, and the 4th team ever to win 4 straight games. And this is kind of weird. The first team ever to win 4 straight games when trailing at halftime. I just find that
Wow.
fascinating. And it's whatever. That's weird. Jalen Hurts, though, had a career high 5 TDs in week 12. 2 rushing and 3 passing. AJ Brown, seventh receiving touchdown of the year. He ranks 4th with 1,050 yards on the season. Devontae Smith, 7 catches, 106 last week. 5th receiving touchdown of the season. DeAndre Swift, 4th in the NFL with a career high 770 yards this season. Overall, Philadelphia ranks 8th in yards, 3rd in points, and 13th in passing and 8th in rushing. So really nice balance there. They're number 3 now on third down. They slipped from their number 1 rank that they've been sitting at, but it's still over 47% conversion on third down.
Oh,
And thanks to the brotherly love in a lot of ways in that sense, because once they get close, they can just run that play. The Eagles defense pretty good too, although not as good really ultimately as the offense. They're 21st in yard 3 versus the run, but just 29th versus the pass and 30th on third down. So totally opposite from their offense. They are tied for 20th in points at plus 22 points a game. And defense is 13th in the NFL with 32 sacks. So they can't get after the quarterback. This is going to be a heck of a ball game, right? Probably the game of the weekend, the one that everybody wants to tune into.
absolutely. Just a fascinating matchup to see. So their styles are so different, similar but very different. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm rooting against both teams. You
Yeah, and
know,
this one though we get the quarterback matchup between these two quarterbacks. Hurts the sort of the overachieving second round pick, and then Purdy, the out of nowhere Mister Irrelevant, and turned into an incredible quarterback for this. Is a system quarterback. He's the right guy in the right system.
yeah, all those playmakers. Going to be a great game. Maybe an NFC Championship preview. I sure hope the hell not. But
Yeah.
Dave, We talked about this, a rematch of Super Bowl I. It is for Sunday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Green Bay Packers, and the Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, and the Pack have won 2 in a row and 3 of 4, and they are coming off a big win over Detroit in Detroit over the Lions on Thanksgiving Day to get their record up to 5-6. That puts them in the 8 seed, just a half game back of that final playoff spot in the NFC. You said it earlier. They are on the come here. They are looking like they're the team that's going to find a way to sneak in there. For the last 3 or 4 games, Jordan Love has played much better. Like he's played like an actual first round quarterback from that 2020 draft, which got so many good quarterbacks in it, right? Last week, he completed 22 of 32, almost 69% for 268, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. When he was really struggling, he was turning the ball over way too much. It was a 125.5 quarterback rating. That was his career best. So in the last month, his trajectory and the quality of his play has gone immensely up. Young receivers have had a really big role in that. They've started to play very well, including Christian Watson, who had 5 for 94 and his 10th touchdown of the season last week. How about Jaden Reed, the rookie, 5th touchdown of the season last week, and he's had a TD in 3 straight weeks. So also A.J. Dillon with Jones on the mend. A.J. Dillon had a pretty nice game with 81 scrimmage yards. So the Chiefs will certainly be a big challenge for this Packers squad, but they're playing well and they're at home. And even if they come up short in this one, they've got some very winnable games on the future. So projecting ahead at the Giants versus Tampa Bay, at Carolina in their future. So some winnable games right there.
And I would put some of those early struggles from Love this season on that young receiving core too.
Yeah.
Christian Watson banged up, and then the young guys just kind of figuring it out on the fly. But it's looked like a totally different team the last couple of weeks, and I think that there's stuff to be excited about there in Green Bay. But let's talk about these Chiefs, Dave. Every time we count the Chiefs out, they just do that Chiefs thing. I'm
Yeah.
starting to think they're just bored with the regular season. Las Vegas up last week early 14-0. Does it matter? No. Since 2018, the Chiefs have won 63% of its regular season games in which it trailed at some point during the game.
Wow.
That's 10% higher than any other team in the NFL. So it can start slow. It doesn't matter for these damn Chiefs. And last week we talked about the Chiefs not having a true number one. And then Rashee Rice comes up big time versus the Raiders. He had 8 for 107 and a touchdown. He led the team with 10 targets. That will be huge if he can continue to get that production from Rice in this offense. Kansas City defense also playing on another level. Top 4 in total defense and in passing defense. Top 3 in scoring D at less than 17 points a game. And they've held opponents under 25 points in 11 straight games. And as bad as it felt for the Chiefs after that clunker in Denver, if MVS doesn't drop that TD against Philly, their only other loss was week 1 against the Lions, dude.
Wow.
And they hold the tiebreakers over all 3 other division leaders in the AFC. So currently they're a half game behind the Ravens. The Ravens have their bye this week. So if the Chiefs do win and win out, the number 1 seed is theirs yet again. And the road goes through Arrowhead, as it always does. Oh, and by the way, Big Red is now the winningest head coach for both the Chiefs and the Eagles. Let's celebrate with some nuggies. Poor
It's
Chiefs
coming for
problems, man. As bad as it's been,
you.
it's all just right there. Disgusting.
Yeah, and if they do get the bye and everything goes through Kansas City, that is a sea of red. They're as good of fan base as there exists in the league. They come loud and strong every single time. It is literally a very, very tough place to play.
Yeah, crazy.
All right, on Monday Night Football, Casey, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a great game when we looked at it at the beginning of the season, and it kind of fizzled out a bit here with the quarterback situation for the Bengals. But Jaguars are favored by 8 in this one.
You mentioned it, dude. The schedule makers were completely stoked, high-fiving each other. 2 AFC teams fighting for the playoffs. But those Burrow-less Bengals are currently the 11th seed and are 1-6 in games versus AFC opponents. They dead. I don't see a path for them
Yeah.
to get in. So they're just playing it out. Some good news, though. Joey B did have successful wrist surgery this week and is expected to make a full recovery. So the Bengals have that to look forward to. The Jags, though, are right in the mix and have a puncher's chance at that 1 seed.
Yep.
But still, they're all sitting right there. A lot has to go their way, though. And at the end of week 13, we could have all 4 division leaders tied at 9-3 in the AFC, just to make it that much more tasty going into the post. Now, since the 49ers sacked Joey Lawrence, whoa,
Whoa.
5 times, the Jags have only given up 1 sack in their last 2 games. As a result, Trev, 47-70, 626 yards, 67% completions, 3 TDs, 1 interception, and 3 rushing touchdowns. You protect Trevor, and the results come. Jags finished the game versus Texans on defense. Josh Allen, a sack and a half on that Texans final drive to seal the deal. That gives him a career high of 12 sacks on the season. The Jags should roll in this one, but we will know more in the next few weeks as they go to Cleveland and then host the Ravens in their next 2. Those are both huge games, and much like most of the games every week, the season is going to go down to the wire, and I am completely stoked about it.
Absolutely, man. It is going to go down the wire. And when this Jacksonville Jaguars team is kind of playing their best football, feels like they can beat anybody. They're really strong on both sides of the ball. Obviously, um, you know, they got the quarterback. They got the receiving group. Ridley's really been coming
Kirk,
on.
Jones,
Yeah,
Ridley, Evan Ingram, Etienne, even Tank in the back.
a
There
lot
are
of
weapons
weapons.
everywhere, and
Yeah,
Peterson's a
so
great coach.
no question, he's got the Super Bowl resume. When they are clicking, they can beat anybody, and that's I think moving in forward and moving into that playoff uh, scenario. They're a pretty exciting and volatile team.
Yeah, let's see what happens this last month of the season to know what we have in these Jags, but they are fun to watch. So many ways you can check out the Football Dudes. The Trend Zone, the pod you're listening to right now, is available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and we're now on Amazon Music.
That's right. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Football Dudes LA, and make sure you tag us across all social media platforms.
We're out there surfing on the interwebs. Go ahead and bookmark footballdudes.com. That is going to do it for this episode of the Trend Zone. We're not the suits to talk football. We are the dudes that know football. For Dave, I am Casey. And just like the month of November, what are we, Dave?
We are out of here.